Heroclix has been out now for over 20 years, and looking at the sets that they've made, there are just so many featuring just about every figure you can think of, every character in comic book history. I'm sure there's a couple that they've missed, but just give it another 20 years and I'm sure they'll get even the most obscure of characters. Featuring over 10,000 different figures, today we're going to look at 10. That is the 10 top Batman figures made for the Heroclix game. Now for this, we're going to be considering the sculpt as well as the playability of the figures. So some might be on this list just because they look good, and some might be on this list just because they are fantastic figures to include on your force. And now that that's done, I'm Clifford, the Clix with Clifford. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like the Heroclix game and if you want some more lists. But let's go ahead and get into it with number 1. And sliding in our number 10 spot, we have the number 95 from the Crisis set, Batman. He's a vampire, cool looking Batman, and he makes this list just because of his awesome sculpt. Now, he came out in a time before there were cards, so you kind of have to look up what his stats are, or just try to click through the impossible to click through dial to try to see what his stats are. They're not great, but he's made up for it by having one really cool sculpt on an old figure. I wouldn't actually recommend using this guy, but pick one up if you're a fan of just cool sculpts and a fan of Batman. And at our number 9 spot, we've got the Batman from the Justice League set. He is number 1 in the set, the very first figure to come out. Now, he's on this list for 2 reasons. One, because I really like to use him in a very particular team, and also his sculpt isn't, half bad. Featuring the man himself holding his cape, he's just kind of cool as far as the sculpt. But what I really like about him and what earned him a spot on number 9 is a unique keyword. Now, coming out in the Justice League set means he was the first DC set to come out with a card. Now it is 2024, so the cards looked a little bit different back then, featuring just kind of this white card, listed the effects, stuff like that on there. Didn't have the stats. So again, you'd have to look online or just click through the dial to see what his stats were if you wanted to see what those were. But what we're looking at here right now is the Justice League International keyword. What's cool about this keyword is that it is shared by the likes of Booster Gold and Blue Beetle, 2 of my favorite characters, some of which feature being able to use probability control twice and perplex twice. And I also like to use Captain Atom, who also has that keyword, to just add a little bit of firepower to the team. Because as you can see, this Batman has the Out of the Shadows team ability, which allows him to pop in and out of hindering terrain. It's pretty great to sneak around people and get into good angles for whatever it is you might need to use. And that's what made him onto my number 9 spot on this list. Coming in at the number 8 spot, we have the Justice League Trinity War Batman, set number 51. Now, he's not on this list because his sculpt is anything special, because it's really not that great. Pretty undynamic, just Batman standing there. We have a lot cooler sculpts out there, many of which you'll see here too soon from now. Not too far from now, anyways. But what we want to do is look at his stats, what his powers are, more specifically. Now, this Batman might just be one of the best Batmans that came out before any of the new card designs did. He has a cool trait that lets you give the Batman team ability to anybody with the Justice League keyword and who's lower points than you. And in Superman and Wonder Woman, they don't have to be adjacent or lower point, so they basically gain the Batman team ability. But what's really great about him is his attack power. Now, this attack power lets him take a free action to choose any standard attack or damage power, and he can use it until your next turn. You need Pulse Wave in a time where Pulse Wave did 3 or whatever your damage was? You got it. Need some Penetrating Psychic Blast? You got it. He can choose any power attack or damage power that he wants, just making this guy a powerhouse back in the day. Now, he also had an amazing damage power, which just gave him the big three: Perplex, Outwit, and Probability Control if he has no action tokens. Just the big trifecta of the three best damage powers in most people's opinion, combined with using any attack and damage power that you could possibly want to choose, made this Batman a force to be reckoned with. Nowadays, he's just a little overcosted, but still pretty great. Moving in at the number 7 spot is the world's finest number 60 Batman, also known as KC Batman. Now this one's getting a little bit of props for its sculpt. The KC story is one of my favorite stories of all time. Sculpt looks pretty cool with these big wings fanning out, looking all menacing like. But where this guy shines is actually in his abilities. Now, at 150 points, you're basically just paying for high stats. He has running shot, 13 attack, 4 damage, outwit. Only has 6 range with 2 targets. We're really just paying a really high cost for some decently high stats at the time. But where he really shined is at that 25 point line. Now, all the chases that came in the World's Finest set had this isolated from this violent world trait, where there were only 25 points. You had to put them 6 squares or further away from any starting area on their click number 11, which you can see all the way on the right side there. Now, they stayed on this click, couldn't be moved or otherwise be given any actions while they were on this click, but if your opponent got a critical hit against you, or he was the last dude on your force, you got to turn him to click number 6, and he got to come out in full force at the very end and, maybe try to score some extra points or something. Now, he did have the KC team ability, but that's not really all that important. What we're looking at here is he has this cool damage power where he can use Outwit with a range of 10, and then opposing characters within 4 squares can't draw lines of fire to him. So he can't be seen while he's just sitting out there if your characters are really far away from you, and then he gets a 10 range to outwit things, all for 25 points. And that's what makes him the number 7 spot. Now, chillaxing in the number 6 spot is the Harlequin Chase Batman, the God of Knowledge, featuring one of the coolest sculpts we've got for Batman, featuring him sitting in the Mobius chair. Now, this is from the New 52 when he became the God of Knowledge, when he obtained the Mobius chair. One of the coolest parts that happened in the whole New 52 series, making him, a pretty cool sculpt. Now, stat-wise, he was a bit overcosted. He did have the Quintessence team ability, which is just Power Cosmic, and the Batman team ability, of course. And he also had keywords, typical of any Batman out there. Now, he did have some pretty cool powers. He has a trait that opposing characters within 6 squares and lower points, which you probably are going to be, can't use Perplex. Nice and handy to keep keep himself safe, really. He also has this cool movement power, which only has on the first 3 and last 2, where he has phasing teleport, and when he can use it as free if he has no action tokens. And then he can also carry characters that have flight. Back in the day, if a character had flight, you couldn't actually carry him. It's kind of a weird rule. Glad they got rid of that one, but he allowed you to carry them anyways. So he was able to run out 10 squares carrying somebody for free if he had no action tokens, which made him pretty good. He was just a little high costed, so there was nothing really to pair him with. And then he also had a damage power of Outwit, and when he uses it, instead of choosing 1 power, you may choose 2 powers or 1 team ability, which did come pretty handy. You could, get rid of a team ability, I guess, if you wanted, or double Outwit. His stats were just a little bit lacking. He had top click, he was okay. 11 Pensai with 4 damage wasn't too bad, but that just sank fairly quickly, making him not really the most useful of characters, but still really cool character to use and earning my number 6 spot. Snooping in our number 5 spot, and with these Batmans, the next 3-ish can kind of be interchanged in their spot because they're all pretty decent. But we've got the 059 from the Batman team up, Chase Batman, from the Scooby-Doo team up that he did. They did a comic book where Batman and Scooby-Doo, the whole Mystery Inc. got together. It was pretty cool. Now, this set is just a grand slam, amazing set, must have for any collector, featuring Lantern Ring equipment and their constructs, this Batman, the Scooby Gang, of course, and later on a few other Batmans that, well, at least one other Batman that's going to be making it onto this list. Now, his sculpt is pretty dynamic, doing a Batman superhero landing, but his stats are what we're here to talk about. Now, this Batman doesn't have any special powers, that is, no white powers, only standard powers. But he has one trait, and that trait is what we're here to talk about. Now, it is the Batman family training, where he takes a maximum of 1 damage from close attacks, and adjacent friendly characters on their starting Clix take a maximum of 1 damage from close attacks. Now, this is really good. If you're playing against a bunch of people that can only make close combat, or you're staying in stealth and they have no way of getting past your stealth, they're only ever going to be dealing 1 damage to you. It's also a good for having like a nice solid wall for your team so that anybody who gets hit, they're never going to take that much damage on the top. He also has a couple other things going for him, and that is in his keywords. Now, he has the detective keyword, and in this set, we were given mystery cards. Now, mystery cards, you needed some keywords, typically the detective keyword, to use, giving you some substantial bonuses in some cases, meaning this Batman can make use of every single one of them. He also had the Batman family keyword, which lets him equip the new utility belt that came out in that set for free, which just gives you a whole host of options to use, making this Batman just really good. Now, my idea for playing with him is actually to pair him with the next Batman on this list, which we'll get to here shortly, and I'll explain to you why. Being shotgun blasted into spot number 4 on this list is the notorious deceased Batman, coming out of one of my another just favorite storyline that ever came out, featuring basically zombie versions of all of our favorite superheroes. This is Zombie Batman. Now, he's wearing a Mr. Freeze costume because he uses it in the storyline to slow down the virus long enough that he can talk to his son and tell him how much he loves him, basically. Nice, heartwarming part of the story. So it's a pretty cool sculpt from a pretty cool story. But as always, what makes him really shine is going to be on his stats. Now, coming out of, I think, the most recent DC set as of this recording, the Notorious set was also really good, featuring a lot of cool figures, including the chases, some of which were these deceased zombified version of our favorite heroes, of course. Now, they all had these like zombie last few clicks where they could only take 1 damage and had some pretty ridiculous effects, but we actually like this Batman because of his very top starting dial. Now, first, he has a trait called Deceased, which explains exactly how he works. Basically, the first time he'd be KO'd, instead you turn him to click number 9, and then if you do this game, he has, when Batman would take damage from a game effect, he takes 1 unavoidable damage instead, and at the end of your turn, deal Batman 1 unavoidable damage, protected pulse wave. Now, this is a pretty cool power, allowing when he dies, you get access to these 3 really cool powers at the end. Now, if you played him at 75 points, there's a monster inside of all of us. When Batman attacks one or more character that can use a light blue standard power, he modifies his attack and his damage by +1, making him potentially a very good offensive threat. Now, in his movement power, he has charge and sidestep. If Batman occupies hindering terrain, opposing characters can't use improved to target him or adjacent friendly characters. Now, this is the power that earned him a spot on this list, and why I was saying I would pair him with the Batman from before, the Scooby-Doo Batman, who makes sure you only take 1 damage from close attacks. Now, if you can keep these guys in hindering somehow, it makes it where nobody can use improved targeting to target him or anybody adjacent, forcing them to have to get in for close attacks, which then only deals 1 damage. So if you can keep this guy protected with, say, 4 of the Chase Batmans from the previous set, then they basically makes it where your opponent has to just will you down 1 click at a time for the entire game. And since they can't use improved targeting to shoot past or through the hindering, which you're stealth because you're Batman, then you're going to have one annoying game. Rising in at our number 3 spot, also from the Notorious set, we have the Black Lantern Batman. Now he has a pretty foolish sculpt, where he's just kind of looking menacing. Nothing too great. The sculpt from the previous Black Lantern Batman was actually a little bit cooler with him climbing out of a grave, but we'll take what we can get. Still one of the more dynamic and cool looking Batmans that we've had out there. Now this Batman does lack the Batman family team ability, which means he can't equip the utility belt for free, which is a shame. He also doesn't have... No, actually he does have the detective keyword, which is pretty helpful. Now what makes this guy particularly fantastic is the Black Lantern Corps keyword. Now, what makes this great is there is another character coming out of the same set called Necron, who allows characters that are occupying a grave-hindering terrain marker to heal past their starting line, and also gives other healing options as well. So you can play this Batman at his 40-point line, and you can actually get him all the way to his 70-point line very, very easily, basically giving you 30 points for free, making it pretty fantastic when paired in any Black Lantern Corps team. He also has a trait called Out of the Eternal Shadows, which is one of the easiest ways to generate grave-hindering terrain markers, because he can just generate one in the square that he's in, which is pretty amazing. It's just free. Generate a grave-hindering terrain marker in Batman Square. One of the best and easiest ways of making a terrain marker for sure. Now, if there's already a friendly grave marker in Batman Square, instead you may place him into any other, no matter where it is on the map. And then when it's not your turn, lines of fire drawn to any friendly character through those friendly terrain markers is blocked instead of hindered, which is just truly amazing, just preventing a lot of range shots from happening to people trying to shoot at Batman or anybody on his team, making Black Lanterns probably one of the best meta teams that you could build as of right now. Now he also has Flurry and Sidestep, allowing him a little bit of extra maneuverability and attack when straight out of the bat when he comes swinging, when you pop him straight across the map. But where he really shines is his specialty damage power, which is Outwit. And when he uses it, he may instead choose to target all opposing characters occupying any friendly grave markers. If he does, choose a color instead of a power, and the targeted characters can't use standard powers of that chosen color until your next turn. So he can choose one color, outwit everything off of it from anybody occupying any of your friendly grave markers, making this Batman truly, truly deserving of our number 3 spot. Powering in at our number 2 spot is one you guys probably all figured you were going to be seeing on this list, and that is the Prime Batman from the Batman Team Up set, featuring Batman with a green power ring. It's pretty cool. He's got like the Batman symbol projecting off of him. He's got a green and black costume. One of the coolest sculpts. I'm not sure if it's better than the original Green Lantern Batman that we got, but it's still a really cool sculpt to have and a really cool figure to have as well. One of my prized Batmans in my collection, of course. Not surprisingly, for a character that's going to make it onto a number 2 spot on this list, this Batman is truly powerful. He's really, really good. Definitely worth having. Now, he has a trait, first off, that allows him to have both the utility belt and the Green Lantern ring, both of which came out of the same set, the Batman Team Up. He can have them equipped at the same time. And with new rules allowing you to equip any equipment at the beginning of the game, he just starts with both equipped for free, considering he has both the Green Lantern keywords and the Batman family keyword. So he's just automatically has both of those equipped, making him one of the cheapest lanterns to have if you want to have any lantern on your team, just to have one that can generate like chainsaws and stuff. He's one of the cheapest ones at only 25 points on his bottom dial there. And then he also has the utility belt, which just makes him pretty versatile, giving him bigger smoke clouds, range combat expert, crazy stuff like that. Now that he also has a really cool smoke cloud special attack power, where he can use smoke cloud as free but only generates one marker, and opposing characters occupying or adjacent to any of his smoke cloud markers can't use improved movement abilities and must break away from him as if they were adjacent to Batman. Now, this is a really good ability, allowing you to potentially outplay and outmaneuver your opponent by maybe going up on elevation and then putting your smoke cloud down so they can't fly over to get at you. He's really, really cool. I like him a lot, and the utility belt actually gives him a full smoke cloud is free too, so then he can attack or do something, smoke cloud for free, and then gets that benefit from his power for a full smoke cloud. Now, you guys probably all have only seen this Batman used at his 25 point, but telling you I have used him at his 100-point line before, and he is just a monster with his special defense power, which gives him invincible and willpower. And then when he uses willpower and succeeds, after resolutions, modifies combat values by +1 until your next turn. That, when combined with the Green Lantern ring, which gives him a +1 to willpower rolls, means that on a 4, 5, 6, he's getting a +1 to all his combat values. So at top dial, he's got 8 range, a 11 square running shot, 13 attack, 19 defense, 5 damage without wit. Like, he's just really, 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 really good. He also has stealth automatically because of the Batman team ability, and he can carry support around with him. I've tried him out on 100 points, and I've never been disappointed. That's what earns this Batman the number 2 spot. Singing in blue on our number 1 spot, probably to no one's surprise, we have the Justice League number 5 prime version of Batman. Now, this features Batman standing with a microphone and comes from in the Justice League Unlimited cartoon television series, where Batman has to sing a song in order to turn some of his friends back from being animals into their normal selves, as a trick played by Circe. And fittingly, since he's singing a song called Am I Blue, he only has blue powers: mind control, incapacitate, shape change, and mastermind. He has decent stats, I suppose, with 6 movement, 12 attack, 18 defense, and 1 damage, which the defense goes down by 1 every time he takes a click, and his attack goes up by 1 every time he takes a click. Now, he doesn't have any special powers at all, but what he really has is a trait that got him banned. Now, it is free for the rest of the game. Batman can't use the Batman team ability, and whenever he occupies a clear square of terrain and is given a range action to use Incapacitate, Mind Control, or Penetrating Psychic Blast, he can use Improved Hindering, and he can make a range attack while adjacent to opposing characters, and he may instead target all opposing characters within line of fire. This trait was good enough that it got him banned. He could literally, there were ways, such as saying equipping exospecs to him and then having people with enhancement for damage, that on turn 1 you could fire and attack an entire opponent's characters all at once. I used to do this using 2 Screets who both had an enhancement and increased the attack of adjacent characters by +1, meaning that he would have a 14 attack and 3 damage. Usually I'd have someone else with an enhancement as well to make it a 4 damage. And then you could just set them up on a ledge, for instance, and target their entire team and shoot everybody on their team for 4 damage with Penetrating Psychic Blast, which you would pick from Exospecs. Now, if you didn't want to equip anything to him, that was fine too. You could also just use the powers that he had, incapacitating in somebody's entire team. Also not too bad. But what I like to do was give him that pen side turn 1 and just have him blast away. There was also options back in the day where you could knock him back forcefully into a wall and do knockback damage, and then you would push him further along his dial so that you could get to those better stats, or to Penetrating Psychic Blast, for instance, and then just shoot people. Now, having a trait good enough to get him banned where you can no longer use him anymore is all I needed to know to put him as number 1 on this spot. Or on this list anyways. Now, if you guys like this list, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me know what other lists you would like to see and which ones you disagree or agree with me, or if I missed some Batmans you think deserve to be on this list. Catch you on the next one, guys. Thanks for watching.